The Toronto Maple Leafs could look to bring some veteran help in net. Plus, I finished off some of your mailbag questions here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm your host, David Morassutti, here from Sportsnet. Remember, Locked On Leafs podcast is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from, and make sure you also subscribe to us on YouTube so you get those shows each and every day, Locked On Leafs. And just a reminder, today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we're in the dog days of summer. Not a whole lot going on with the Leafs in terms of big news. We're still waiting, obviously, for the Ilya Samsonov extension. We're also still waiting to hear about what's going on with Matt Murray. And this is where an interesting report came out from Larry Brooks of the New York Post, veteran writer. So you take what he says with the, this isn't a report that you don't shoo away, necessarily. And he's been saying that there's three goaltenders right now, actually four goaltenders right now. Veteran goaltenders kind of looking for jobs right now. They're still looking to play. You got Yaroslav Halak, Brian Elliott, Martin Jones, and Thomas Greiss. And apparently, according to Brooks, Brian Elliott perhaps is on his way to Toronto. So when you hear the word perhaps, obviously it means it's not a done deal. It means that it's not exactly set in stone that's going to happen. So see that report and it makes sense. And I'm going to explain why it makes sense, because we know the Leafs right now, as it stands, are probably going into the season with Samsonov and Woll as their tandem, which we know that Brad Treliving wants to get a veteran to go up with Joseph Woll. He pretty much said in his press conference where he is saying, Joseph Woll was just 11 game sample size, didn't really, it's not enough to really say for sure if that's going to be something that they can count on for next year. I totally get that. Brian Elliott is obviously, a bit on the older side, 38 years old. He was playing the last 2 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning, so he was playing for a contending team. Now, he had a 12-8-2 record last year. The numbers weren't very flattering, a .891 save percentage and a 3.40 goals against average. He was better the year before that. He was 11-4-3 with a 912 save percentage and a 2.43 goals against average. So this is one where I can understand as like a potential, third goaltender, someone to battle with Woll. I can understand the Brian Elliott interest. Now, I know a lot of people who saw Brian Elliott and they see Halak's name, they see Martin Jones' name, Thomas Greiss' name, and they say, well, why is Brian Elliott the guy out of those ones that are kind of getting the most interest from the Leafs? First off, we don't know what exactly Yaroslav Halak, he's someone that is obviously a name. If you have him, I think when it comes to Halak, my concern with him is obviously one, does he want to come to Toronto? He had okay numbers for the Rangers last year. He played 25 games, he was 10-9-0. He was 9-0-5. Wait, hold on. 10-9-5. Sorry, just got to read that better. He had a 2.72 goals against average and a .903 save percentage. Not earth-shattering. The Rangers are, they were a good team. So it's, that's good numbers for Halak considering his age and all those things as well. Halak, he's been around the block, quite a bit. If you know Halak, he's been with many different teams. So I think he's he would also be, a not too bad option if the Leafs were looking at that. He's also 38 years old, like Brian Elliott, so it's not like you're getting a younger goaltender if you go with Halak. Obviously, Martin Jones, someone that I think that's a little, I guess, a little surprising maybe that he is still out there. You know, the only reason why I say that is because he does have starting experience. And I understand that he had a brutal season. The last few years have not been kind to Martin Jones. Statistically, he wasn't overall his season wasn't great. With the Seattle Kraken, he had an 8.86 save percentage, which is not very good. But there was flashes, I guess, at times. Like there was that January period we went 9-2, and he had a 2.36 goals against average and a 9.12 save percentage. And remember, Seattle went on that ridiculous run, and he was a big part of that. I also think, I mean, the Leafs don't need a Martin Jones. I think that'd be a little unnecessary. I don't know how. I think Martin Jones is gonna have a hard time finding quality playing time, considering there aren't many teams right now looking for goaltenders. And then I look at Thomas Greiss, who not a very good year last year in St. Louis, 3.58 goals against average, 0.896 save percentage. Now, before he left the Islanders and he went to Detroit, he had a really okay season in his first season in Detroit, but just seems like his play started to fall off. Again, another guy in the 35 plus range. I don't know if that's something I would be, again, running to go and get. Brian Elliott kind of seems like a half decent option out of all of them. So, yeah, I mean, Brian Elliott is not a sexy name by any stretch of imagination, but I also think that at his age, he's also local. He's also a local product. So you think that maybe that'll help sweeten the deal. He is from New Market, so not too far from Toronto. I think that this would be a worthwhile look at. He's not going to command a lot of money to come to Toronto, right? Like he's not in that situation where he can say, pay me a lot. He made $900,000 the last few years with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So he's not someone that's going to command a high cap hit. He might even take a little less to come to Toronto. If you're getting your your A B backups under a certain amount, that's actually not bad in today's NHL, considering some teams have overpaid for backups because they just don't have that starter. And the Leafs will have to also figure out Samsonov. They also have to make sure that they have enough room to sign a Brian Elliott. I think with Elliott, the thing to do would be to get him on a tryout potentially and tell him if he all works out, you sign a contract with him going into the season. It is something the Leafs have done with goaltenders. It is something the Leafs have done with players. They don't have the cap space right now, but we'll make the cap space and we'll make you fit. That's usually a pretty easy way to get those deals done. All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back on the other side, I'm going to discuss more of your mailbag questions. There were a few more that came in that I wanted to bring up, and that helps me continue the discussion on things that are happening around the Leafs, including where in the world could the Leafs trade Matt Murray if trading Matt Murray is the option for this Leafs team. We'll do that on the other side, but let me tell you about one of today's show sponsor, and we're bringing back a show sponsor that I am actually a big fan of, and that is Birddogs, because Birddogs make you look good because they're a stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer to the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They do the exact same things as Lululemon, but fit way better, and they fit better than regular shorts that are made of restrictive cotton that are very stiff. Birddogs fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that look just like khaki but stretches in a way to make a slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And they use anti-stink, sweat, wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I actually went golfing. Really hot day in Toronto. It was like over 30. It was like 36 with the heat. So that was close. it was a very hot day. I wore my Birddogs, maybe, kept me cool. It kept me, going through my game the whole time. And also really good if you're walking out on the golf course all day. It is a perfect thing for that. So make sure you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. Enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or promo code LockedOnNHL for free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you that. Hello, welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's your team every day. David Morassutti here, flying solo with Mike DeStefano on vacation for the next while. So if you're wondering where Mike is, he is probably somewhere in Italy right now on a cruise. I know. The guy is enjoying Italy. He didn't even take me with him. I already gave him the business for not taking me to the motherland. But someone has to be here to keep the show rolling, and I am doing that for you. And I do have a guest lined up. We are in discussion right now just to see if we can make the scheduling work. So I'm happy to have someone join me on the show to keep the conversation going. And you guys have been a big help. I do want to say a big thank you for guys who have been sending in Mailbag. I know a lot of you are everydayers who will listen to podcasts every day. This is important for us, to make sure that we're giving you guys the content that you want to hear, especially where there's not really a lot of Leafs content out right now. There's not a lot of podcasts. A lot of people are taking their vacation. I mean, this is a time to take vacation if you're in the Toronto media right now. So I thank you guys for the questions. I wanted to make sure I continue doing those questions. So let's go with the Matt Murray one that I got here. So I'm going to bring it up. This is from Dawson 2409. Which team would Matt Murray be traded to if he were to be traded? Why? And who would Murray be traded for and why? So this is obviously the number one question on a lot of people's minds when it comes to a Matt Murray trade, where it's tough to gauge exactly where Matt Murray fits in terms of where he could go. The obvious answer for me is Chicago, because Chicago only has 2 goaltenders signed. Peter Mrazek is the only one with a lot of NHL experience. Now, Chicago isn't exactly trying to win, but they're also a team that needs to make sure they get to the cap floor, and they're going to try to get as many assets as possible, right, to push forward in their rebuild with Connor Bedard. So that's why I think, you look at them, they could be the team that makes the most sense in terms of a Matt Murray trade. So that's the number one team in my mind. What would the Leafs get back? Not a whole lot, guys. It's a salary dump. You're getting rid of Matt Murray so you can get money off the books. It's as simple as that. When they got Matt Murray, they gave away future considerations. And I know the Leafs also got a 3rd-round pick in return. Here's the thing. And people say, well, the Leafs are trying to get rid of salary, and it was a 3rd-round pick that they got for Murray. Yes, part of that was to take on that contract, but the Leafs had every opinion to play Matt Murray, right? Like, he was supposed to be a goaltender they were going to rely on. This isn't exactly what a team trading for Matt Murray is going to do. I don't think they're trading for Matt Murray and saying, yep, he's going to be an option over X, Y, and Z that we're bringing in. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this. I don't think, a team that's trading for Matt Murray is doing it with the intention of saying he's going to make our team better. I don't think so. That could be a situation where he's on LTIR. It could be a situation if that does happen, although the Leafs would have just kept him if they felt like LTIR was the option for him. I also just think that there just aren't that many teams that could trade for him. And that's why some people are saying the buyout's the likely option. I mean, yes, I think we'll see. I think they're going to wait and see what Samsonov's deal turns out to be, and that will help make the decision. If they can't make a deal work, then he will get then. If the Leafs can't trade Murray, they'll buy him out. That's just going to have to be the likely situation. I don't see them going into the season with Matt Murray. I just don't see that happening. Another team that kind of popped into my head potentially for a Matt Murray trade is the Anaheim Ducks. They're a team that needs to get to the cap floor. I think they've got a lot of cap space. They're another team, again, that I don't think is going to be pushing to be competitive. I know they made they made the Alex Killorn signing and things like that, but I don't think they're a team that I look at and say that's a contender. And they only have John Gibson. We know John Gibson. They said he doesn't want to be traded, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think could be some inklings that John Gibson could leave. So Matt Murray would be a good option for them if they want to get to the cap floor, and maybe Matt Murray will get some playing time and a chance to see. And look, Matt Murray for himself, if you want to convince him to be traded somewhere, go to a place where they're going to play you. Because if you feel like you're still going to play and you want to make yourself an opportunity to get another job, go to a place that's going to play you. Anaheim could be that place. Chicago could be that place too. So I don't think finding a way to make sure Matt Murray waives the because he does technically have a no trade clause. It is a modified no trade clause. So he has a 10-team no trade clause. Sure, I'm sure there's going to be some teams he doesn't want to go to. Like Buffalo was apparently on that no trade list when Ottawa's trying to make a deal. Obviously, he had ended up in Toronto. So I think. Yeah, I do think Chicago would be my likely destination. If not Chicago, I think Anaheim would be second after that. All right, thank you guys for that. Thank you, Dawson, for that question. All right, when we come back, I'm going to continue the mailbag. We're going to continue taking your questions about the Leafs in the offseason. But before we do, let me tell you about today's show sponsor. It is our title sponsor. It is FanDuel. Take your swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under. Who you think is going to get the first home run game? You can even put it towards hockey futures. You can do like I did, put some money towards the F1 race. F1's a good one to bet during the summer if you're looking for somewhere to bet. And you can do that all on the app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, right? A lot of apps don't do that. FanDuel does that, and that's why I like the FanDuel app. There's no better place to bet on MLB, NHL, NBA, whatever sports league you follow than FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball and the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's your team every day. David Morassutti here with Mike DeStefano on vacation, and we're finishing off. I think this is probably going to be the last bit of mailbag questions. Unless you got more mailbag questions, you can submit them in the video. I'm going to keep them going, but I do also we'll be having a guest on some point this week as well, so that'll help keep the content and keep the conversation going. So let's go with one a little more NHL centric. This is more of a generic NHL one. The next few are going to be actually from one of our YouTube listeners. So thank you for Brad Morse 7957 for giving me these questions. There's some very insightful questions. So what will be the most ridiculous rule in the NHL? So he thinks waivers are a joke. Let players sign where they want to and make the team responsible for dealing with their contracts. So it's a business. At the end of the day, teams make mistakes with contracts. I don't think, like waivers are not a perfect situation. We've seen teams, all find ways to, get in and around with contracts and stuff like that. Ridiculous rule in the NHL, in my opinion. I mean, I could easily just say that we don't know what goaltender interference is in today's NHL. It used to be cut and dry back in the day. You weren't even allowed in the crease but now with goaltenders going out and challenging more, it's forced the league to change things up a little bit when it comes to goaltender interference. But I feel like the challenges have made it kind of ridiculous. Challenging for offside. I think challenging the ones that are like a millimeter offside, I think those ones are a bit ridiculous. Like the blatant ones, I totally get the blatant ones should be, figured out. But the ones that happen where it's like barely offside and a minute later the team scores and it's like, let's challenge for offside. Like, I understand why the rule came in with that Matt Duchene offside that led to a goal. I'm fine with like the blatant missed ones that the refs, just didn't get it done. So I don't know if it's helped the game in a little bit, but it's also led to a lot of frustration, I would say, from fans. Another rule that I'm not a fan of. A rule in the NHL. I mean, I also think there's rules that aren't in the NHL that I think that should be in there. I've been a proponent that maybe NHL teams should look into opt-ins for contracts. You look at all these long-term deals that are being signed. There's quite a few players that haven't stayed with the same team that has signed them to that deal. You're seeing it now in a lot of other leagues where teams have player options, team options when it comes to contracts. The NFL has found ways to restructure deals where you can change the cap hit or spread the cap hit out onto other seasons in order to make things work. So I think the NHL I could look to do stuff like that if they want to, shake things up. Let's say that when it comes to when it comes to the rules. But I think most of the rules are, I mean, they've been around for so long. I don't know if there's any that I would say I have a huge that I'm like I would deem ridiculous at this point. Maybe the challenges ones just because it hasn't really done what they want to. So let me know, guys, if you have a rule that you think is absolutely ridiculous. Is there an NHL rule that you would like to get changed? Let us know in the comments below. All right, we're going to continue with Brad here. What do you think the team needs to be successful in the playoffs? Well, if you look at the last few years, I would personally think guys that play with a little more. I mean, Mike and I kind of say this in different ways. Play with a little more jam, a little more piss and vinegar. I look at the game sevens with Tampa, right, where they barely are able to score because I just think that they're not willing to get to those tough areas to score, finding those tough ways to get goals. They're putting on shots. We always know the Leafs find a way to put shots on net, but it's never enough. It always feels like the other goaltender has an amazing performance. Well, it's also because the other goaltender sometimes has an easy time, and the Leafs aren't willing to get to those, dangerous areas. That's just my opinion there on that one. I also think what do the Leafs need to be more successful? Their best players got to be their best players at this point. When your best players are getting beat by Sam Bennett, Brandon Montour, Nick Cousins in the playoffs, that's simply not good enough, everyone. I think that's something I read in the comments. I think a lot of people are understanding that now. So I do think that's something that this team does need to figure out. How can they get more production from their stars? I think helping the stars, getting players that can help them, adding a Tyler Bertuzzi will help. He's going to help create a little more time and space out there for players. I think Max Domi, guys that are going to be like, if the other team is going to try to ruffle the feathers or make try to intimidate. I wouldn't say intimidate, but maybe be a little more physical against the stars. They got guys that are going to go out there and step up and say that's not going to happen while I'm out on the ice. So I think that's an important one there. And yeah, I think your blue line has to provide more offensively. You got to make your blue line a point of attack for that opposing defense. So I think that's an important one. That's an important one there for me when you're looking at things that the Leafs need to do to be more successful in the playoffs. And final one here from Brad. Would you trade Nylander now, knowing what assets you might get back? And he referenced the DeBrincat deal. I think here's the thing. With the DeBrincat deal, he kind of made it seem like he only wanted to go to Detroit. And Detroit was only willing to give up what they wanted to give up for a deal. And they were only getting him for 4 years. I mean, it's still a significant, term for a player like that. So it's a tough one with that. I think with Nylander, if you're not getting a deal that absolutely knocks your socks off, don't make the trade. I also am of the belief that if you have to listen to anything, you have to be willing to just wait and see what's the best deal right now for the team. You have to do what's right for the team. I understand people want to keep Nylander around. I understand that Nylander shouldn't be asked to take less when other guys haven't been willing to take less. But That's the business right now. I think with Nylander, I would only trade him if you're getting something that's going to help the team now. You can't do it for futures because you're trading a guy who scored 40 goals and can put up 80 points for you. You have to replace that somehow. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to replace him with one player that does that. But if you're going to get pieces that are going to help you, I think on the blue line, I think up front, you're going to have to do kind of a split there if you can get that done. But I don't think you go around and say, yeah, we're not going to trade Nylander because we're worried about not being able to get enough back in return. I think that's where you got to make sure you're getting the best deal possible. I understand that, but you also can't say we're not going to make the deal just because we're worried that we're not going to get the return. Like we're going to get fleeced on the return. You pay a general manager to make sure he gets the best deal possible. Like that's his job. And I think the Leafs, they're just gonna have to find they're gonna have to find a way to make this work in the best way possible. I wouldn't be upset if Nylander comes back, because here's the thing, he is coming back right now because he's under contract. Is he coming back after this year at a number that makes sense for the Leafs? If the number doesn't make sense, the number doesn't make sense. At some point, you have to look at what this team's future is. And if you are tying it up to 4 players, it makes it hard to do other things. They couldn't go out and give Domi, Bertuzzi, and some of these other guys the long-term deals they were looking for because they simply don't know what their cap structure is like going forward. And that's tough, right? They got to figure this out. I think you got to really push the envelope here and try to get these deals done as soon as possible so that you can make your other moves that you need to make for the offseason, because there are moves that need to still be made. So we'll see where that all turns out. So want to thank Brad for that question. I want to thank you all for your questions. If you got more questions, submit them. Maybe my guests and I will dive into those a little bit more on the next episode. So I want to thank you all for watching the episode, for following the Locked On Leafs podcast. Make sure you subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you go and follow us on Twitter at Locked On Leafs, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and you're getting notification. Tell all your friends. Make sure they know that we're still going to continue to give you 5 episodes a week until we move into our summer schedule, which won't be until next week. After this week, we are then going to be moving to 3 shows a week for the rest of the summer. So we're still going to be giving you Leafs content. We're not going away. We're not like some other podcasts like season's over, we're going away. We're sticking around. We're going to be sticking around for 3 shows a week. So that's something I'm very proud of here. And we're going to make sure we continue to provide that content. So until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs.